Hello everybody and welcome back to M&J Games. I am Michael and today we're going to do something that I have not done before and I am really excited for this, or not done at least in a video, is we are going to project the NCAA Tournament bracket. And obviously I'm no expert with this. This is just a lot of fun to try to create and see kind of how close we can get the bracket and what certain matchups would be. So as you can see, we have a blank template here that we will end up filling out. And I have also created, this is kind of what I work with right now. And this is essentially my true seed list, which we'll get to that in a second. So to begin though, I kind of want to first off actually show you this amazing website called Warren Nolan. And it is just an unbelievable site because you can click on a team. It shows you all their net rankings, everything they've done. You can look at literally every single game, and you can pull up box scores, and it tells you every single stat you might need to know. And then they also have, you can look at Clubhouse by week rankings, see how they've changed each week. Pretty crazy. Impact games. Just really cool. Really cool. And then, so if you go back here to the net, they have net conference rating, so you can see which conference rates the best and what's the net leader within that conference. And then you've got the net nitty gritty, which is probably my favorite one to look at, which just shows their everything here. You got the quad losses, and this is a really interesting one to look at. Average net wins, meaning the teams that you beat, what is their average net ranking? So as you can see, out of these highly ranked teams until Kansas, Baylor's got by far the best one. Well, I guess until Villanova and then Kansas. And then you can see Tennessee's is close, Auburn's is pretty good. And then you look at average net losses. And what that's saying is that shows you who's lost to the best teams overall, which at this point is Kentucky. So they've lost to better teams. And like, look at this. Baylor with 12 quad one wins. Nobody else has even 9. Or sorry, Kansas has 9. So pretty impressive. And you can look and see quad 4. Gonzaga's played 14 quad 4 games. Texas Tech, that's a lot of quad 4 games to play as a Power 5 team. So that's really cool. And then team sheets, this is even more detailed. It shows you every single game. So the ones that are in red are losses. This tells you whether it's neutral, home, away, so forth. This puts the ones in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, so forth. So really cool. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. And before we begin actually creating the bracket, I kind of wanted to go over some a previous year and kind of see how the actual tournament committee goes about actually creating the bracket. All right, so what we were doing now is we were first going to look at the 2019 bracket and look at the true seed list so that we can kind of get an idea of how the committee goes about seeding teams, and not just seeding, but then building the bracket based off that seeding before we kind of build our own. Because to me, it is fascinating to look through this and see how they come up with some of the concepts and ideas. And like normally what you can see is in the West, which this instance, it doesn't necessarily work out that way because there were not a ton of Pac-12 teams that were in this tournament to begin with. But usually you can see a fair amount of Western teams that fall in this region because they try to keep stuff as local as possible. And that's what we'll kind of see kind of going throughout this, is they try to keep everything local. Even though if you look at the bylaws, it says they do a true S-curve. So this article called How Does the Field of 68 Teams is Picked for March Madness, which I briefly talked about this in my first video. And you can see clearly down here as we go to, and the only part I really care about is seeding, or not the seeding, the building of the bracket, because all this stuff is about having a committee, and you got to have a certain amount of teams right here, and it's kind of complicated. But then seeding teams, building the bracket. And so I talked about this the other day. When you're building a bracket, each of the top 4 teams selected from a conference must be placed in different regions if they're seeded on the first 4 lines. And then they talk about when teams can and can't meet and so forth. Like if you played a team once in the regular season, you can't meet until the round of 32. If you played twice, not till the round of 16. If you played 3 times, not till the Elite 8. So some of that comes into play. Now all of those are kind of loosened when it comes to last 4 in. Now, So it talks about a seed, maybe a team may be moved up or down from its seeding, its true seeding, to kind of match the principles. And so some of that ends up happening with your playing games and stuff. So we'll get to that in a second. But now they talk about placing this, and then they say the committee will then place the number 2 seeds in each region, placing the overall number 8 seed in the same region as the overall number 1 seed. That's not true, because I'll show you on 2019 why these rules are kind of a little bit iffy now, in terms of they really focus on regions and trying to keep stuff local. Now, it then says they'll then place the rest of the number 4 seeds and so forth. And where does it say? Something about an S curve. All right, the committee will then place seeds numbers 5 through 16 using the S curve. Now, let's get back to here. And what I found was they released their true seeds. Okay. So as you can see, these are the true seeds, 1 through 68. And I'm not going to reference this again just because I've got it printed out and I've got it sitting by me for me to look at as we kind of look through this, so instead I'm not having to go back and forth. But you can find the true seeds every year and where teams are ranked and so forth. And so now, if we look at this, the number 1 seed overall is Duke. Obviously the first 4 are how it's set up. But then when you look at the 5th best team, the 5th best team is Tennessee. If it was really following what it said, Tennessee should be right here in the West, but Tennessee's not, because they give Tennessee the choice of saying, okay, what's most local to Tennessee? Well, Louisville is, so that's where Tennessee is. Then you get Michigan State. Michigan State wants to play in the East. So the 1 seed overall number 1 is not playing the number 8 overall. That's not how it ends up working. They seed it based on regions and so forth. Then we got Kentucky. Well, Kentucky's going to go to Kansas City instead of Anaheim. That's why Michigan was shipped out to Anaheim. Then for Houston, we got Houston over here in, I think, the Midwest. Yeah, Houston's in the Midwest, Kansas City. Then we have, changing the page. Then we have Texas Tech. So Texas Tech is placed here in the West because that's actually probably closer to Lubbock than these other two, because Lubbock's pretty, at least I've never been to Lubbock, but it's pretty far into Texas going west. Then you got LSU's going to be in the East, and then they put Purdue in the South. So that's one where I feel like they could put LSU here. So I wonder what the reasoning was for LSU being in D.C. instead of Louisville, because Louisville to me would make more sense. So then, as we get to 4 seeds, you then have Kansas. Well, Kansas is obviously going to Kansas City. Then you have Florida State, and they actually put Florida State out here to the west, which to me doesn't make sense. So it's kind of interesting how sometimes they use the regions and sometimes they don't, because why would you go from here to here? But then they've got Kansas State. Kansas State got Louisville, and then Virginia Tech got D.C. So if Florida State truly is the number 14 team, then the second, 4th seed, why did they have to go west? So, and now, you know what? I wasn't thinking, because the reason why Florida State had to be put here is, who we got here? We got Purdue, you got Tennessee. Okay, and the reason why Florida State had to go here was because of the policies of you can't have more than one team on the top 4. The top 4 teams from each conference have to be in different regions. So as we see here, Duke and Virginia are already in these regions, so Florida State had to go here. So that's why that worked out. And like I said, I'm just kind of going through this because I think this is fascinating, seeing how this is built. So then from here, and as you see, they kind of go through that and they place, and we're not going to go through the whole bracket. We're just going to look at some individual parts of it. But you can see here now, they decide where teams are playing, right? So if we then go to Marquette, well, Marquette, as the 5 seed, is then put here in the West. But because then now they're maybe trying to do this S curve, so we'll see if that truly works. But what they do is they allow Marquette to play in Hartford, Connecticut. But the issue here with this too is it kind of puts Florida State a little bit of a disadvantage, because I think Marquette's a little bit closer, although I could be wrong with that. But that's Wisconsin. That's still a good distance away. So that's an interesting one. And then you got Auburn. Okay, so now they're following a true S curve. So we got Wisconsin, yes, and then we got Mississippi State over here. Okay, So Mississippi State has to go out to San Jose and so forth. And then for 6, we got Villanova, which Villanova is not in here. And they probably put, where's Villanova at? Villanova's over here. Okay, that's an interesting one. So then they start to say, well, Villanova can play in the South, but they wanted Villanova to play in Hartford. And then 6, they got Maryland, so then Maryland's back here. Then Buffalo, and they put Buffalo out. I think Buffalo was out east. Yep. So it's different how it jumps around once you get past those first 4. So there's really not a rhyme or reason with some of it. Some of it has to do with matchups, locations, and so as you can see, Buffalo playing in Tulsa, Texas Tech also playing in Tulsa. They try to get those as close as you can get to where teams aren't necessarily having to travel too far. Like both Oregon and UC Irvine playing in San Jose. Now this is kind of frustrating if you're a Kansas State fan being put in San Jose, and then you got to play a team that's not too far away from that. So I can understand the frustration there of if Kansas State was frustrated by that mix, and it's because they're one of the lower 4 seeds, so they had one of the last choices of places to go. And so sometimes you will have those issues that kind of pop up. Like Cincinnati playing in Columbus when Cincinnati's closer there than Iowa, different things like that. But yeah, so now let's actually get to my true seed list, and then we'll start building the bracket. All right, so we're looking at our true seed list here. We're going to have to do a lot of switching and going back and forth or copying and stuff like that. But we're actually going to build this bracket, and this is going to be kind of a longer video because this takes time. It's not anything that's done easy. And we're actually going to put the sites for all the games and stuff. And so one thing to be mindful of with these playing games here and with these last 4, one of the 16 has to be played on Thursday, one of the 16 seed has to be played on Friday, and so forth. So that's how sometimes you might think, well, shouldn't the 2 best teams be playing the 4 last teams in? It doesn't quite always work out like that. So let's go ahead and start with our number 1 team, which, surprise to nobody, is Gonzaga. I do think Baylor has a case to be made to potentially, based off their resume and everything, and the amount of quad 1 wins and so forth, but ultimately Gonzaga is going to stay in that spot. And then for a third one, I've got Arizona, and then we've got Auburn. And this, honestly, I wonder everybody's opinion on this who's watching, because if you're the number 4 overall seed, I guess East isn't bad for Auburn. So we're going to have to find, let's see, is there a... So this is going to be East, and that's in Philly. Because Gonzaga is West, so they're going to be in San Fran. And then Baylor's going to choose the South, so they're going to be in San Antonio. Just kind of abbreviating it. And then here, Arizona's going to be Midwest. That's in Chicago. All right, so now that we've kind of placed the kind of regions like that, what we're now going to do is we don't go based off of, Kentucky's the overall number 2, so they've got to play the worst this one. Auburn and Kentucky cannot be in the same region because it says in the bylaws, as we talked about, that the first 4 teams from the same conference on the top 4 line have to be placed in separate regions. So Kentucky is not going to choose to be in the East. Kentucky would choose to be in Chicago in the Midwest. So Kentucky is going to be here because that's regionally located. So then we look at the other number 1s, and I think Kansas probably stays where they're at. So Kansas, but Kansas cannot be in the South, so Kansas is going to choose to go East. So then we got Duke and Wisconsin. So Duke's definitely going to choose South. So Duke and Baylor in the same region. Then Wisconsin, stinks to be you, Whiskey. They're going to have to be shipped out west in Gonzaga's region. All right, so now we look at 3 seeds, and we start with Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech is 2 options. They can either be in the West or they can be in the Midwest, because they can't be in these 2 because of Baylor and Kansas being there. And Tech's going to, let's see, Midwest, Chicago. Yeah, I think Ooh, that's a tricky one. Because West Texas, San Francisco. Ooh, I'll be honest. I don't know geography-wise. I think San Francisco probably is where they would choose. I could be totally wrong on that, but that's kind of my thought. So then we have Purdue, Providence, and Villanova. So Purdue would want to go to Chicago. So we got Purdue. And then Providence would want to be in the East. And then we got Villanova here. Villanova. There we go. Spelled it wrong. So now we go to 4 seeds, and you got UConn leading it off. I still think UConn's a pretty solid as that 4 seed. You know what? Actually, after them losing last night, I think we're going to change this up a little bit. I think Tennessee's going to be there, Illinois, and then UConn. All right, so now let's start with Tennessee. So Tennessee's going to look at this, and Tennessee would want to go Chicago. Where's 3? Where's 4 at? Here we go. So then you look at Illinois. Illinois is going to want to go east. And then, who was it again? It was UConn. So UConn would definitely choose to go south, which leaves Arkansas going west. So now that we've gotten here to this point, one thing that they do is they add up the true seed numbers of these to make sure the regions are at least somewhat balanced. So, for example, Gonzaga was 1, Arkansas was 16. So here's what I'm going to write out beside it just to make it easy on the math. So we got 1, we got 16. Texas Tech was the 9. Wisconsin was the 8. Actually, that worked out kind of crazy with that. So when we add all these up, the whole point of this is you want the regions to be as balanced as possible. The higher the numbers are, the easier the region. So we got 17, so this is 34. So that's about average. So then over here for Auburn was the 4. Illinois was the 14th. I think, yeah, 14th. Providence was the 11th. And Kansas was the 6th. So then we add this up. You got 4, 18, 18 plus 17, so that's 35. So that region is actually a little bit easier in Gonzaga's, but that's not out of the ordinary. So now Baylor, we've got 2. UConn was 15, so 17. Villanova was 12, so that's 29. And Duke was 7, so that's 36. And the thing is, they say they want it to be within like a 3 to 4 number. So this looks like it's going to be pretty even first go around. So if something was way too abnormal, meaning too difficult or way too easy, they would switch up a couple teams if needed. So Arizona was 3. Tennessee was 13. So that's 16. Purdue, I think, was 7. Purdue was 10. So that's 26. And then Kentucky was 5. 26. So that'd be 31. So this would by far be the toughest one. And so what they would do here, at least to my knowledge, is they would look at this and say, all right, is there any way we could make this region a little bit easier and this one a little bit tougher? And so you look here, and what they could do is they could look at this and say, all right, we know Purdue gets a choice, but we're going to put Purdue as the 3 seed here. Villanova, and this is at least to my knowledge, because in the rules they do talk about this. So then that would actually make it a little bit more even. So that's that one step right there. And I could be totally off on that aspect of it, but I believe that's, from everything I've seen, that's how they approach that aspect right there. So, as I said, this is a longer process. This is not something that happens quickly. So now we actually place the rest of the bracket. And so now they do pretty traditionally have a good S-curve here. But you know what? Actually, before we place the bracket, we need to actually figure out locations of where these games are going to be played at, because that's pretty critical and pretty key thing to know. So you always start with the number 1 seeds and with the overall number 1 seed. And so the overall number 1 seed, Gonzaga, is going to want to play in Portland. So I'm just going to write it in here. And I'm going to put in parentheses too. This is Friday. Now, Baylor is going to want to play in Fort Worth. Wow, I can't speak. Fort Worth, and that's Thursday. Or I can't type is what I meant to say. Arizona is going to want to play in San Diego. And that is, what date is that? San Diego. San Diego's Friday. Why does it do that? There we go. San Diego's Friday. And then we got Auburn. They're going to go to Greensville. I think that's what it was. Or Greenville. And that's Friday as well. So what this means is Baylor's going to have to play one of the playing games. And they're going to have to play the playing game that doesn't have Alcorn State. So we'll get to that. So now we look at the top 2 seed, which was Kentucky. And Kentucky's going to want to go to Indianapolis. I'm just going to put Indy. And that is Thursday. Okay. So now we go to Kansas. And Kansas wants to go to Fort Worth. I mean, that's not even a question. And that's going to be Thursday. Then Duke, and Duke's going to want to go to Greenville. And the key is once, you just got these pods, and once it's been used twice, teams can't go there. So usually some of the far east or far west ones don't really get used much. Like at this point, we've already used Fort Worth, we've already used Greenville. We haven't used Milwaukee yet. We haven't used Pittsburgh. Haven't used Buffalo. Now Wisconsin's going to go Milwaukee, which I always seem to spell wrong, and that is Friday, if I remember correctly. So now we go to the top 3 seed, which was Texas Tech. And Texas Tech can't go to Fort Worth, but they're going to go to San Diego. So that's actually maybe the closest one for them, which that's Friday. So San Diego's off the books now. Then the next one was... It wasn't Villanova. It was Purdue, and Purdue's going to want to go to Milwaukee. No, Purdue would want to go to Indy. I don't know what was I thinking. Purdue being in Indiana, they're definitely not going to want to go over a couple states. So Indy's gone now, and then we go to Providence, and Providence will want to go to Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, I think, is Thursday. Let's see. Pittsburgh's Friday. At least you know what? Providence, I don't know. Would they want to go Pittsburgh or Buffalo? I don't know geography of that part of the country that well. All right, so now Tennessee can't go to Indy, so we need to look and see where Tennessee could possibly go, because they could go to Milwaukee, they could go to Pittsburgh, Portland, or Buffalo. So they're probably going to want to go to Milwaukee. So they'll be in... And then we go up to... they're the first overall 4 seed. And then we go to Illinois. And Illinois, bummed they can't get Milwaukee. So they're going to look here and say, all right, it comes down to Pittsburgh. Actually, you know what? I think Pittsburgh might be gone now. Because if we look at this, I still need to do for Villanova. And Villanova's going to take Pittsburgh. All right. So then now Illinois is going to go to Buffalo, which is Thursday, I think. Yep. So Buffalo, and then we go to UConn, who's also going to go to Buffalo. And Arkansas is going to have to go out to Portland. Which is Friday. Now, this really matters because this is where, you start placing teams regionally. So this is why it matters, okay, not just are you a 4 seed, but which 4 seed are you? Or are you on the 3 line? Because then you get to start choosing where you want to go. So they do a pretty good job at this point of trying to keep it as an S curve, but they always then start back up here. Or I think they actually started down here in that one that we just looked at. So now let's look at this, and we see, so now we're at 5 seeds. So UCLA. So we got UCLA. Our other 5 seeds are St. Mary's, Houston, and Texas. So then St. Mary's, and they do to some extent, so they're going to put St. Mary's here. Because they do, sometimes it does try to keep regional. And then Houston. And Texas. And then for the 6 seeds, we've got LSU, Ohio State, Alabama, USC. So we got LSU, Ohio State, Alabama, and then USC. Which, you'd look at this and you'd say, well, look at USC and UCLA, same West region. They've done that before. Last year when everything was in Indiana, they still had Oregon, USC, not just in the same bracket, on the same Elite 8 type bracket. Pretty interesting. So now we get to the 7 seeds, and my 7 seeds, as we can see here, is Iowa, which, Iowa's interesting. They get their second quad 1 win tonight, so they really don't have great wins, but my goodness, are they looking good right now. So we got Iowa, Murray State, Marquette, and Seton Hall. So Iowa, and I think sometimes they kind of lean more towards, with this point, trying to get them more regionalized for the first couple. So Iowa and then Murray State. Who else did I have? Marquette and Seton Hall. And then we got Marquette. Gosh, cannot type. There we go. And these are actually working out pretty well without having to move it around. So now we get to the 8-9s, and this is where you got to make sure with all these Mountain West teams, that none of them can match up. So I've actually got all 4 Mountain West as 10 seeds, which is pretty interesting. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to switch one of these, because I do think San Diego State is pretty darn good. Let's put San Francisco there. So I'm just going to go ahead and match them up. So if we start with Iowa State would play essentially Boise State. So we look here in Greenville, we got Iowa State, Boise State. Then with another one, we would have essentially Colorado State. Colorado State and Michigan State. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of matching them up here. Sometimes they match up perfectly. If you actually look at the true seed list, sometimes it doesn't. Why did I put? Okay. Actually, you know what? Iowa State needs to be with Davidson. Yeah, Iowa State needs to be with Davidson. But what they're actually going to do, so let's see, Colorado State, Michigan State. Wait, no, hold on. Sorry, Colorado State, San Francisco. There we go. So right here in San Diego, Colorado State. San Fran. Golly. There we go. And I can never seem to spell San Francisco correctly. Because I think I probably spelled it wrong there. Don't worry about me. There we go. San Fran. I know I totally spelled it wrong. So now we can have Michigan State and TCU, or Michigan State and Wyoming. This TCU can't go here. So Michigan State, they try to relax those. So we'll do Michigan State. Michigan State and Wyoming. Michigan State and TCU. And then we got Wyoming Yeah, and Davidson. All right, so now we get to the 10 seeds, and like I said, I'm going through this a little bit quicker, so I might not be getting the true S curve with it, but now we got San Diego State, Notre Dame, Creighton, Indiana. So San Diego State, Creighton, who else was the other one? Notre Dame and Indiana. Now, Notre Dame can't play Kentucky, but Indiana can. Oh, why did I put... That's not what I meant to do. Indiana. There we go. And then we've got Notre Dame. Then with the 11 seeds, and this is where I need to make sure before I even place North Texas, Xavier, BYU, Wake Forest, and VCU, I needed to figure out, okay, where can that be placed first? Because that... if I look at my 11 seeds, we got a Friday game, we got a Thursday game, and we have a Friday game. So 3 of these are on Friday. So I have to make sure that whatever the 12 seed playing game is, that it's going to fall in line on a different date. Because as you can see, we got one that's 11 seed, one that's 12 seed. So let's start with this Wake Forest and VC. We'll start with Xavier, North Texas first, and then Xavier. So North Texas, if we start looking at locations, who did I miss on the 10? San Diego State. Sorry, guys. This is there we go. So if we go North Texas can play in Pittsburgh, Indy, or San Diego. And we're going to put North Texas and San Diego there. Xavier, BYU. So we go over here. So we go Xavier, BYU. And then this is going to be the play-in. And with this play-in down here for the 11, this is going to be in the East region, which I need to color this white so we can know what region it's going to be placed in. There we go. And then here we've got, with our play-in, we've got Wake Forest and VCU. Okay. So this will be the play-in game up here. Now we go to the 12 seeds, and this is where I need to make sure with my Memphis and Loyola that this game's on a Friday. So I need to find one that's on a Thursday. So Friday, Thursday. Okay, so most of those are on Thursday. Okay, so 3 of them are on Thursday, so it's really not going to matter. So now, if we start with UNC, so we got UNC, South Dakota State, Chattanooga. I don't think they played this year. I think that's last year. UNC, and then in Milwaukee, we got South Dakota State. And then Chattanooga is a 12 seed. So Chattanooga, this got to play Thursday. So Chattanooga's going to have to go here. Probably spelled that wrong. So now this other playing game is going to be in the South region. So this one's going to be in the South. Put down the wrong one, but yeah, there we go. So we get the point. Now the South region, we're going to have Memphis and Loyola. All right, so we got the play-in, and then now we move to the 13 seeds. So we're going to do S-curve the rest of the way on this. So 13 seeds, Toledo, Towson, New Mexico State, Iona. So we got Toledo, Towson, Mexico State, and Iona. Ooh. My Illini might have a tough one there. Northern Iowa, Vermont, Texas State, Jacksonville State. All right, now 15 seeds. Long Beach State, Princeton, Montana State, Colgate. So Long Beach State. That's not where I meant to put that. Princeton. Then we got, what was the other one? We had Montana State and Colgate. So we got Montana State. There we go. Then for the 16 seeds, we need one of the playing games got to be here. Baylor on Thursday, and then we can do the other one. This might actually work out. We can do Gonzaga, or you can do Auburn for the play-in, or even Arizona. So now, if we look here, we will put the Longwood here, and then Cleveland State. All right, now Baylor is going to get a play-in, just like Gonzaga over here is going to get a play-in. And this is the West region, so we've got the West. And then we're going to have the South. There we go. So this one's going to have to be Nicholls State and Bryant. Was that it? Oh, Norfolk State. My bad. Norfolk State. Because Baylor's already played Alcorn State. All right, and hopefully I don't have any rematches in here at any point. I think I've got pretty good knowledge on what teams have played. Like I know Towson did play Ohio State earlier in the year and stuff like that. So here is our projected bracket. And I've already kind of explained in other videos my thoughts, but let's actually go through and choose the games now and see, based on this projected bracket, who our Final Four teams and so forth. So here, I mean, Gonzaga, any question. Michigan State, TCU, both. I almost think TCU in this one just because I think Michigan State's reeling, and I'm going based off of how teams are playing right now. I'm not going based off of potentially where teams could be. I think this is an upset potential. I am going to go with the upset here. I'm going to go with Chattanooga. I know UCLA had magic last year. I just haven't seen it this year. I like Arkansas there. And then here, I like Gonzaga over TCU. I think they're going to run away with that one. I like Arkansas over Chattanooga, which would set up an interesting Sweet 16 matchup. So then we got North Texas, USC. And honestly, I'm going North Texas. I'm just not big on the Pac-12 this year. And I could be totally wrong about that. And we got Texas Tech. And then here I'll go with Texas Tech again over North Texas. And Iowa's playing so well right now. I think Iowa's going to have that one. San Diego State, that's going to be a tough out, though, because they play defense. And then Wisconsin. And then Wisconsin, Iowa. I'm going to go Wisconsin. You know what? That won't work now that I think about it. Because they can't play in the second round. So we're going to have to switch up a team. Sorry, Murray State. We're ditching you. Actually, you know what? Why is it doing that? Hold on. There we go. There you go, Murray State. Now, I think Murray State could give Wisconsin a heck of a game. But, I mean, ultimately in the end, I think Wisconsin's too much. And then here with Wisconsin and Tech, I think both these teams are very similar. I'm going to take Texas Tech, though. I think they've I just think that defensively they're going to cause problems for Wisconsin. Their size and length is really going to cause issues for Johnny Davis and Brad Davidson and stuff. And then we got Gonzaga and Arkansas. Let's go Gonzaga. I think Arkansas is good, but they can't shoot. They struggle rebounding, and they're going to struggle to control the tempo against Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is just too much. And then, here I think Texas Tech's gotten better since they played, but ultimately Gonzaga is too much. Then we have Auburn and Longwood. We know who's going to win that one. I mean, although it'd be kind of awesome to see Longwood. I'm going to go Boise State. Both these teams, this is the battle of defense. First team to 20 wins. In all seriousness, neither of those teams can play offense well. Texas, UNC. Let's go with Texas on that one. Don't trust North Carolina. Illinois, Iona. I think Iona's good, and that's a potential upset game, but going to go with Illinois. Then we have LSU versus the play-in, which is Wake Forest and VCU. And I'm going to go with VCU right here. And I actually like VCU to beat LSU. I'm not big on LSU this year. And then we got Providence and Northern Iowa. I like Providence. Seton Hall, Notre Dame. Give me Seton Hall. Notre Dame hasn't really done anything to prove anything to me. Then we got Kansas Colgate. Colgate is they can shoot. It's not going to be an easy game. I like Providence over VCU. And then I like Kansas over Seton Hall. I think Seton Hall could cause Kansas some problems, but I think Kansas ultimately is too good. Here we got Auburn over Boise State. Boise State can't score. And Illinois over Texas. And then I think this would be an amazing matchup to see Walker Kessler and Kofi Coburn go at it. And then the guards for both teams. I think the question is, who for Illinois is going to be able to guard Jabari Smith and at least keep him in check or semi in check? But then on the other end of it, Auburn is terrible at rebounding right now, and Illinois can pound the glass, and Illinois can really shoot. So I'm going to go upset here, and I'm going Illinois. And then we got Kansas down here. So I think Kansas is too much. Providence having a great year. It's going to end in a Sweet 16 run. So then we got a potentially great matchup with Illinois and Kansas, and this is a tough one. I'm gonna go Kansas. I think if Illinois does play up to their potential, they can win that game. But I just think at this point, when I go back to Auburn too, I just think Auburn's showing that their guards just can shoot them out of a game. And I think ultimately that's what's going to happen at some point in the tournament, because Jabari Smith doesn't create for himself in terms of being able to dribble and get his shot. He's able to rise above people and get his shot, but he doesn't dribble and stuff like that. Why did I take Illinois? I thought I took Kansas. There we go, Kansas. And then I think Gonzaga will get back. I think the issue with Kansas here is Kansas wants to play fast. And that's what Gonzaga does. So to beat Gonzaga, you got to be more physical on the inside. You got to kind of slow it down a little bit. You can only play fast if you had essentially the team Baylor had last year, and nobody has that. So now we've got Baylor. I'm gonna go with Wyoming. I think Wyoming's a good team, and then I'm gonna take Baylor over Wyoming. And then we got Houston. And Towson, I'm going to be interested to watch him play. I don't know anything about him, but I'm taking UConn at this point. I'm going to take UConn over Houston. I think Houston hasn't been tested yet, still hasn't won a quad one game. And I think the way Baylor's playing right now is they're putting it together, and UConn's really good, and they're going to Sonogo down low could be tough, but I think ultimately that's what will end up happening. And then Alabama, Xavier. Xavier's kind of reeling, but so is Alabama, so I'll take Alabama. We got Purdue. I'm going to take Iowa. They're on a roll right now. And then we got Duke. And then now, I'll take Duke again. And I'm going to take Purdue here. But then I'll take Duke and Baylor. And to get to the Final Four, Baylor's my team, but I hate to say this. I think Duke, with Baylor's lack of depth now on the interior, Paulo Banchero and Williams, why am I forgetting his name? I think it's Williams, down low for Duke, I think are just going to be too much to handle, and let's be real. Duke's going to get some calls in the tournament because it's Coach K's final ride. So I feel like, that could happen. So I got Arizona. I'm going to go San Francisco, or actually Colorado State. I like Rodney or whatever his name is. Then South Dakota State and St. Mary's. I'm taking South Dakota State. New Mexico State, Tennessee. Potentially like that one, but I'm going to go ahead and take Tennessee. And then we've got Ohio State and BYU. BYU's just, they've struggled. So has Ohio State, but ultimately I think Ohio State's got more talent. Never pick Villanova to get upset in the first round. Just never happens. Marquette over Indiana, like what Shaka's doing there, and we got Kentucky. And then here we got Kentucky, and we got Villanova, and then we're going to take Kentucky again over Villanova. I just think this Kentucky team has got so much talent. Arizona and Tennessee, and this is a rematch. These teams have already played again. Tennessee won the first time, but it was at home on neutral court. I think Arizona gets the better of them this time. But then I think Kentucky gets the better of Arizona and goes to the Final Four. And we're going to have, to be honest, a pretty boring Final Four in terms of 3 2 seeds and a 1 seed. And then I do think Duke is a better team. And I think Duke goes back to the championship game. And we got Gonzaga-Duke. And Gonzaga is able to cut down the nets this time. It really is crazy how different the brackets turn out, because when I did the video yesterday, I had Arizona winning it because I forgot who Arizona was playing in the Elite Eight. It's like Purdue or something. But it's kind of crazy. So that would be my guess based on this bracket. What are your thoughts? And hopefully if you did stick around and watch this long video, I really appreciate it because it means a lot. And hopefully you can kind of see just from some of the stuff I've learned, kind of all that goes into actually building and creating a bracket. And as always, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And have a wonderful rest of your day.